Although, you think about it, if there's babes out here that are starting OF pages, yet they're underage, like, you wonder how guys who are underage would be packaging their dicks. Like, if I were one of them guys, I'd probably want to give it some proper marketing terms that would make it sound like, like the moment I hit 18, it's all yours. Like, I'd be packaging that shit like early access or like.
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. He is also a man whose sickness for the thickness prevents him from skinny dipping. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. I am here to talk about sex. Okay, actually, no, not sex. Mating. Not in the way you'd think, but more finding mates as opposed to actually doing the deed. Because for some reason, it's like doing it isn't hard for the most part, or at least getting someone to do it with isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue is actually getting a mate that you can actually stay with. Something that can, or should I say, someone that can initiate the process of mate retention. And then it's definitely something that I do want to talk about, because there is something in the lines of this that I do need to talk about, because, well, we've gotten to a point where people are looking at trying to employ some old school tactics, and while I do discuss that, considering that they are going to be communal tactics, if I can say so in the most general term, I would also like to point out a version that involves some very underground, or should I say underwater tactics, and I do intend on getting to that in a bit. But before I can do that, first of all, considering that you have listened for a little over a minute, actually close to 2 minutes, if you do like what you're listening to and you would like to listen some more, you can check out some of the other episodes. And should you like it, should you dislike it, should you want to give some different form of feedback, or if you would want to suggest a potential topic idea, then you can hit me up on the socials. The links are usually in the description. They rarely ever change, and I would be more than happy to get your feedback. The DMs are always open, like I said earlier, and I would be more than happy to handle whatever it is that you send me accordingly. Now, I do need to get into the topics for this episode, of which, before I can even get to the main topic itself, I do want to give a bit of a disclaimer. Is it really a disclaimer that I'm saying? Well, anyways, I will be doing something a little bit different for the main topic because of some circumstantial issue that came up here and there. Although, before I can get into any of that, first of all, I want to discuss something that happens underwater that I found to be absolutely fascinating. And no, this isn't me just saying some shit that I found on the internet that I found to be interesting because, I don't know, like I look at interesting things or I find weird shit. This is something that is genuinely interesting, weird, but also would be so madly wild if we were implementing it as human beings. Now, apparently, there are some fish, or should I say cephalopods, and to be more specific, some species of nautilus that have, get this, a detachable penis. Alright, they have a detachable penis that can swim on its own, and it will basically send that penis on its own on basically a death mission to procreate, which is probably one of the wildest things that I have ever heard of on planet Earth. And I say this because I never really thought such a thing would ever be possible in like nature and shit, because I always make this joke with like babes out here left and right that, like let's say it's ovulation period and they're like, oh, I'm horny as shit, but my man's in here, blah, blah. And I always make this joke of like, if men had a detachable dick, like we could just remove it and just loan it to you for like the day, and you could basically like use it and just, kind of enjoy yourself and then give it back. Or, like we would just give it and then we'd enjoy the pleasure as well, like in the middle of work or some shit, if you've been like too busy to spend time with your significant other or with your fling or whoever it is that you're fucking. And it's been something that I've joked about with people for like, well, basically you could even say years and shit. And to know that there's actually a species on this planet that actually have the ability to detach their penis. I'm not sure if it's like a USB drive, but still, detach their penis just so that, it could basically go and look for mates on its own. Like, that shit is absolutely wild though. Although, before I can give any more thoughts on this, let me just read the quick article that I saw that came with this. So it says, and I quote, in some deep-sea cephalopods, such as the Argonauta, males use a highly unusual method to reproduce. a detachable sperm-filled arm known as a hectocotylus. During mating, the male releases this specialized arm which swims independently towards the female using muscle movements and possibly small fin-like motions. Guided by instinct or chemical cues, it reaches the female, delivers its sperm, and in some cases, even embeds itself in her body. This unique adaptation likely evolved as a solution to the challenges of locating a mate in the vast, sparsely populated depths of the ocean. End quote. Okay, let's just think about this in like the simplest way ever. Like, this is the definition of there's tons of fish in the sea, but dude can't seem to find any, alright? You know, like the sea is vast, especially the further down you go. And, you know, like it can be dark and shit. You know, it's a pretty dark place. And dude just can't seem to find a mate. You know, he seems to be flying blind. So what does he do? He shoots out his dick and is like, you know what? Go find someone and mate with them. And like this shit is like what? Instinct or chemical cues? I'm wondering what instinct or chemical cues is like. Like, does it work with like humans where, like, for example, if it's guys like me that are attracted to thick women, like I just wake up in the morning, shoot my dick up and it just flies off and it just goes and finds someone? Like, that would be so absolutely wild if it happened to us as dudes. Imagine you just taking a run in Karura and then at some point, as you're busy running the trail, because some babe, you know, probably asked for dick or some shit from her mans, you just get hit by flying dick or flying dicks because, you know, like someone went and like asked 5 different dudes for like dick pics or some shit, and they were like, you know what, I'll do you one better, and they decide to just fire their dick off in her general direction. Like, you're just running and you're being bombarded by constant just multiple dicks and shit. That would be absolutely wild. Although the interesting thing with us as human beings is that we don't like doing shit for free. For some reason, everyone wants to turn this shit into some value add, possibly capitalistic idea that people should probably utilize. And this has been done across the board on just about everything, save for the air that we breathe. Of which actually I think even that is being sold in places where the air isn't very good. But anyways, that's besides the point. Like, you think about it, people would capitalize on such a thing and they'd probably want to, you know, cater to those that do not want to go out and look for a mate. And instead of doing online dating or online dating alone, you turn it into like a delivery service. And, you know, you use stuff like Uber Eats or Glovo, and, you know, you can basically package it and it's like, you know, dicks are being ordered left and right. So if a babe wants multiple dicks in a day or wants a dick for a long ass time, they could rent it for a day or get it for like an hour, or maybe they can just get it as like a quick thing before a meeting because they need a bit of a confidence boost and they want, you know, their mood elevated and shit. So, you know, they can go to like the quick fast section, or they go for like the guys whose dicks don't usually last all that long, which could be maybe in, I don't know, the fast food section. And they'd probably have a place where you can provide a Yelp review, although this would be one of those products where like it would be in such high demand, or it's just in such high supply that it outwits demand. So it would get to a point where babes could basically even order a 2-for-1 special, and it's like buy one get one free. So me and the homie are like, you know what, if I get some, you get some, we all get some. And we basically just do packages. Like, me and the homies were like, you know what, we can be selling this as like a 3-for-1, 5-for-1 special, or a 3-for-2 special or some shit like that. And my goodness, do you know how much money we'd be making from lesbians? And then to make matters worse, imagine if a babe decides to become possessive and doesn't have money, so they just don't let go of the dick, so you have to go and collect it. And like, maybe it just, you know, flew away to a really, really far off place. Like, that would be an absolutely wild scenario though. Although, you think about it, if there's babes out here that are starting OF pages, yet they're underage, like, you wonder how guys who are underage would be packaging their dicks. Like, if I were one of them guys, I'd probably want to give it some proper marketing terms that would make it sound like, you know, like the moment I hit 18, it's all yours. Like, I'd be packaging that shit like early access or like Kickstarter funding type shit. And then all of a sudden, like, I'd be making proper money for my dick, you know? That would be absolutely wild. And with all that said, I think now I know why God didn't give us detachable dicks. he probably foresaw us trying to capitalize off of this shit, people busy giving bad reviews on it, and like some clingy people not letting it go, and girls on TikTok giving helpful tips and tricks on how to get free dick on certain days, like hi guys, so this is how you get the humpback special on Wednesday, when you can get 2 dicks for the price of 1, and you can do this with a friend, and you'll even split that cost, and it'll even be so much better, and I'll even be able to help you guys get the big ones that vibrate a lot, type shit. Like, that's the kind of shit that I'm sure he probably foresaw, and he was like, you know what, nah, let's just not. But anyways, with all of that said, I am going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode, which I said I was going to do a little bit differently. Now, normally this is the point in time where I would give a bit of a synopsis, then I'd say there was this post that I stumbled across, or there was this Reddit post that was made, blah blah blah, or there was this conversation I had, blah blah. But things are a little bit different this time. So I was going to reference a Reddit post, and I was going to talk about arranged marriages, and the fact that people nowadays have been talking about getting into arranged marriages and how they seem to be having a little bit more appeal, considering that the dating market seems a hell of a lot shittier right now, and I was going to give my thoughts on it. But unfortunately, that post got deleted, and I didn't get a screenshot of it, so I can't really reference it anymore. But either way, considering that I still have a pretty good idea of what was spoken about, and I had my show notes ready, I'm still going to talk about it just off the top of my head. Now, the Reddit post was actually talking about how, arranged marriages might actually be the answer for our generation, because it seems like bagging people, or should I say, it seems like finding a good mate is particularly hard. Now, the person that posted up the post and then deleted it was busy talking about how they know bachelors as well as bachelorettes, aka spinsters as it's supposed to be called, who are single and just can't seem to find someone. And they were busy talking about how back in the day arranged marriages would have kind of sorted this issue, but right now it seems like people are having this issue of trying to find a good mate and trying to dodge red flags and shit, and it is particularly hard for a lot of people, because now there's a lot of people that just seem to be remaining single for a particularly long time. So considering that I did read that bit and I can still remember some of it, I can probably give my own breakdown because I did prep for this fairly well. And okay, first of all, like, just the first bit in and of itself was particularly interesting because, just for housekeeping's sake, lots of bachelors and bachelorettes, but you're not trying to hook either one of them? Like, that's a little bit odd though. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like it's a bad thing or a good thing to hook up or not hook up your friends. Like, there are some people that are like, you know what, I don't want to hook up 2 of my friends together if they have issues, blah blah blah. It can like cause issues or like cause a rift in like whatever friend groups I'm in, blah blah blah. And I get that, I totally do. But at the same time, I also do acknowledge that some of y'all just don't have good friends, or just have friends that are particularly hoish or aren't good partners. So even trying to hook them up might actually be hard. Now, at the very same time, of course, there are people that can change, and sometimes people will choose to hoe around a little bit earlier, and then they want to settle down and they're going to chill out, or they used to hoe around earlier but they don't want to hoe around now, and it does still seem to be a little bit hard to kind of hook them up, just mainly because too much. Where the bodies are buried, or the fact that bodies were being buried in them. So at that point in time now, it just becomes a little bit tough to kind of try and recommend your friends to each other, or recommend one friend to another, or to someone close to you, just mainly because you're at a point where you already know too much about the other person, such that you wouldn't want to recommend them to even, say, your sibling or something of that sort. So not linking up friends does make sense, but the other question that I'd probably ask is, what are your friends doing as far as finding a good potential partner is concerned? Because that is actually a particularly interesting question. Because there's a lot of people that talk about how they're looking for someone, how they'd love to find a good partner, and I kid you the hell not, this is how their life goes. They will wake up, they will go to the office, they will not try to interact with anyone in a less than appropriate professional manner is concerned. They will finish from work, they will go home, they will sit down in, whatever pajama or sweats they have, or, with less clothing, I don't really give a shit. And then they will either switch to watching a series or pick up a book or call a friend, and they talk to the same friend of the same sex. And basically that's generally how their lives are. They don't leave the house, they don't go out, they don't try doing anything as far as trying to find a good potential partner is concerned, or even just be social with more people than the people you currently know. And then they come back and they're like, you know what, I just can't seem to find someone. Like, don't get me wrong, and I'm not saying that it's all your fault, but what the fuck are you doing? Like, are you even searching? Like, what finding are you talking about? You haven't even started looking. So, as I normally like to do this, whether it's with friends, whether it's on the podcast, I usually like to start with that question of, have you tried looking? Where are you looking? Because talking about your inability to find someone, have you even exercised the ability to try and find someone? That's usually kind of where I start off. And that is kind of the problem with adulting in 2025. You find that people, either just because they're so worn down about work or just with just life in general, they basically will get done with people from the office or at work and then just go home and chill. Now, it even gets worse if the person is, for example, working remotely or in a hybrid environment, whereby they mostly just get to chill by their lonesome and they stick to who and what they know. So they'll go to shop from the same supermarkets at roughly about the same times, or they'll just go and shop there, and they will take the same exact routes, whether it's to work, whether it's to church if they go to such a place, whether it's to meet up with a friend here and there. And because you're confined in the car, you are basically not trying to meet people at the supermarket for the most part, and you're not exactly trying to get, cozy with people from the same office. You're practically in a position where you're not exactly finding anyone, you're not trying to find anyone, and the chances of you finding someone are between 0 and none. So for the most part, like, that just becomes very, very hard. But at the very same time, while I can talk about someone's inability to find someone, I think it can also be hard just with the kind of adulting that we have in 2025. And I say this because I will get to the whole arranged marriages thing in a bit. But I would want to at least acknowledge the reality for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people nowadays that are unable to find a partner because they just don't have the time to go out and be social and start looking, because they're being worked to the bone from dusk to dawn, or should I say from dawn to dusk. And by the time they're done, they're basically so tired because capitalism has taken its toll on them. They basically just go home and chill. All right. Yes, I know I spoke about you having to go and find someone, but I need to at least present some of the caveats to life to at least give some reason, or at least vindicate some of the people that choose to do this. Because it does get to a point where it's like you're basically at the weekend and all you want to do is just rest and or sleep in and probably meet up with a friend or two, and that's it. And then after that, you need to prep up for the following week. So you look at it, how much time are you really taking to actually have a social life? Not all that much. And how much time can you take to actually trying to increase or improve your social life such that you can actually find a mate? And so I can get why it can be tough. And nowadays, especially because of such a thing, there's fewer people that are trying to go out. Back in the day, during our parents' time, or during some people's parents' time, you'd find that people would go to the club, people would go to the disco, or the discotheque as they used to call it back in the day. And guys would go out and they'd be out there dancing and trying to have a good time. But essentially that was also how people are going to try and pick up other people. Like, even when people talk about trying to pick up a babe, like if you listen to a lot of people who will talk about trying to pick up someone from back in the day, they always talk about going to the club. And while that might not be the case, especially today in a place like Nairobi, where everyone's a bit of a groupie and people aren't trying to get to know people they don't know at the club, you'll still find that there's some people that will go to the club. But at the end of the day, if all you're going to do is listen to loud music and a bunch of people try to talk and shatter their vocal cords while you can barely hear them, it does kind of lose some of its appeal as far as going there is concerned. Now, of course, there's way more events. There's other things that you can do in order to go and have some version of a social life, not just in Nairobi, but even outside of it. And I do think that more and more people need to experience that and at least try it out for a bit. If anything, it might help them as far as finding a partner is concerned. But Can I say that there's a lot of people that are going to do it? Probably not. Can I say that there's a lot of people that would regularly do it? Even less so. So at the end of the day, just most people nowadays aren't leaving the house or their comfort zones so that they can actually find a partner. They would want to find a partner, but they'd want the partner to come to them in their comfort zone such that they have the upper hand or something sort of that. And then, they can probably see if they can make stuff work. If not, they'll just tell the person no and they can leave and they can move on and shit. But considering that there's a lot of people that are still waiting on their partner from their living room, not going through a dating app, let's look at the idea of the arranged marriage, because it was what was brought up and it was what was actually spoken about and what did sort of elicit me doing this as the main topic. Now, people have talked about the arranged marriage, of which most of the people that talk about this are women. They talk about how nowadays it's so hard to get someone. They wouldn't mind going back to the days of the arranged marriage where your parents can basically just go and look for someone for you, and then you get married to them, and they would probably be a much better judge of character because they're older, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, I'm not saying that it's a bad idea. It's just that considering that your parents probably didn't do an arranged marriage, the chances of that happening are fairly low, say for a few examples here and there. Like, there's a pretty good reason why they didn't go for the arranged marriage and they chose to go the route of going to find someone for themselves. Now, I'm not saying that arranged marriages are bad. Actually, if anyone's been listening to this podcast long enough, you know that I speak quite highly of arranged marriages and how statistically they have a much better success rate than whatever it is that we're doing out here, which isn't really arranged. The closest thing that we have to arranged as far as out here is concerned is just, a hookup from a friend or a through pass from a friend and shit. And, while all of those are great, they do not carry as much weight as what the original arranged marriages used to be. And so let's kind of look at what the typical arranged marriage from back in the day would entail, just so that I can kind of bring back the idea and whether people should embrace it as much as they like to talk about it. So you look at arranged marriages back in the day, yes, your parents would be the ones that would probably organize for that thing, in that the most that you could probably do is go and tell your parents, I'm interested in so and so, can you guys make something happen? And they would basically go and see if they can talk to, say, the girl or the guy's family on the other side, depending on what gender you are, and see if they can create some form of kinship tie. Now, while all of that sounds all fine and dandy and, it kind of takes the stress away from having to look for someone, well, it does kind of present a couple of issues that a lot of today's people may not necessarily know about. Now, one of the few problems that exists with that is, first of all, you'll have a lot less of a say as far as getting a partner or the kind of partner that you'd want is concerned. So, for example, if you're a lady and you're looking for a man who's tall, dark, and handsome, or tall, dark, and mildly handsome, if I do say so myself, well, then you might tell your parents that you're interested in a certain guy, but they'll look at you and they're like, nope, we can't go to them because our families have beef. And I don't intend on going to make that claim and say, oh, our daughter is interested in your son. Let the son come to us, otherwise nothing is going to happen. Now you can flip this around and even say that it's a guy, because usually it would be the guy that would go and try and express interest, or should I say the man's family that would express interest. And let's say is a man of particularly good stature and character as myself, who is interested in ladies that have a little bit more size in the right regions, something that elicits a little bit more cushion for the person, something that, like makes it feel a little bit better when you're cuddling and shit, you know what I'm talking about, just the same way I like my yogurt, I like my women thick. So at that point in time, you're like, I'm interested in that babe. But, your parents are looking at you and they're like, really, nigga? Are you sure you want this, shorty? And for you, like, you're whipped. You're looking at shorty and she looks fine as shit, especially when she's walking to the river. And then they're basically like, all right, fine, but here's the thing. Before you decide to go that route, let's give you a little bit of a backstory. And then they talk about how that family was involved in witchcraft, and apparently they have an ancestry which just tends to have some very, very shit diseases. Now you're told that's not necessarily what you think. Or we can even flip the script around and say that the problem isn't even the babe or hereditary issues or diseases and such. It's just the fact that the babe isn't thick. Your parents are like, you know what, we want to get this girl for you. She's from a good family. They're very upstanding people. We've been friends with them. But you're looking at Shorty, and Shorty looks like a number one model. Like number one, meaning that she's basically shaped like a number one. So like you like thick babes, but you're looking at this and your parents are like, she's a good girl and she's the one that we want you to marry. You could fight it, but at the end of the day, if your parents are the ones that make the final say, you can't do shit. And that's just the first part of arranged marriages. Now let's throw in a couple of the other issues that would come in. Okay, so the next one, little to no chances of divorce, because anytime you guys have issues, it is basically going to become a family discussion. She mistreats me in the house, family discussion. He beats me, family discussion. He doesn't know how to lay pipe, family discussion. So you would even extend some of the stuff that you probably should be discussing as a couple to the extended family so that they can sort things out, because anytime you guys have issues and one of you doesn't feel as comfortable, you just run to the other side of the family and you're like, you know what, I don't like your kid, they fucked up, and honestly, we need to find a way around this, or I should be at least allowed to get another partner and leave this entire thing. Of which they will not do that. They would much rather find a way to ensure that the two of you guys stay together, which enhances retention rate as far as that's concerned as a metric. Then you look at the other thing, which is social status, image, and friendship ties will probably reign supreme as far as arranged marriages go, because you will rarely ever hear of a scenario where a rich person's family is going to a poor person's family for some sort of kinship tie, or the other way around. Usually whenever arranged marriages were taking place, they were taking place across people within the same bracket, such that it doesn't feel like one side is losing or the other side is gaining a little bit more than, the other side that is coming to you or is being approached. So essentially, if you're a babe and you've been having dreams of dating a baller, then there's a very good chance that those dreams would not exist, because as per the level that you're at, there is a certain kind of guy that you are supposed to be dating, and that's what your parents will look for. Whether it is your parents have money or not, if they don't consider themselves to be of a certain caliber, then they will not be able to get someone for you from that particular caliber, which does kind of start to suck at this point for some people. But it gets even worse the moment you start throwing image and reputation into that mix, because some people just know how to keep up a good image, yet they themselves are particularly shit people. And the moment the two of you are in it, divorce, like I said earlier on, is considered to be a no-go zone unless under completely dire circumstances. So if you're a babe, there's a very good chance that you might end up being married to a guy that seems to be from an upstanding family but is particularly abusive. You go and you complain to his family, and they come back and they're like, nah, you know what, it's just issues between the both of you. We all go through these things and you should be able to gloss it over in a couple of years. And if you think I'm lying about this shit, if you remember earlier in the year or towards the end of last year, there was the case of Sophia and Bumpy. So you know very well that if the man's family isn't in line with you as far as a no domestic violence policy is concerned, well, shit happens. So, like I said, arranged marriages may not seem like a bad idea, but they don't particularly seem like a great idea if you want to do it the same way they used to do it back in the day. Which does bring me to my conclusion to all of this. Ladies, because most of y'all are the ones that like talking about this idea of an arranged marriage. Y'all don't want an arranged marriage. Y'all just want a simple fix to a complex solution that is the dating market. So, the reality of it is, if you could just find someone that could help you hook up with a guy, a great person, or let's even open this up and make it gender neutral. If you could just get hooked up with someone that is pretty nice and it doesn't require you to put so much effort into dating, and it's someone that just fits right for you, you would be so happy. That would be the simple fix that would end it all. It's not even an arranged marriage. You just want to find your person. But unfortunately, we don't have that kind of a fix just yet. So improve the base of friends that you have. Go for a little bit more social events, and you might just increase your odds of finding a particularly suitable mate. Although, then again, maybe I might be wrong about this. Maybe considering that I'm not married, I really can't say shit about this. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open on IG. It is at the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagakadadi. And on Bluesky, it is at the BreaktimePod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.